something that makes me sad is seeing actually larger businesses who are maybe gearing up for sale or trying to cut costs or, think their inbound machine is working perfectly because of global content or Google ads or whatever it might be. But they then move to just translating stuff, even if that's, really high quality translators. That's different from having local content or local campaigns, local events that understand that audience and resonate with them, their pain points, so on and so forth, that bring them into the campaign.
Welcome to Social Pulse Podcast B2B Edition, your dedicated source for mastering B2B social media marketing challenges authentically. I'm your host, Mike Galton, and in each episode, we dive deep into the complex world of B2B marketing, from effective content creation to strategic social selling, sharing insights and strategies you can use right away. Let's jump into today's episode. Welcome back to Social Pulse Podcast B2B Edition, where each and every week we're talking to marketing professionals like you going through many of the same struggles you're going through and sharing their stories. Subscribe to find in each episode the inspiration, the motivation, and the perspiration that go into growing and scaling organizations like yours. I wonder, do your global marketing campaigns feel more like a game of chance than a strategic endeavor? Navigating the intricacies of paid, earned, shared, and owned PESO media across diverse markets can often feel overwhelming, with each region bringing its own cultural quirks and digital landscape. Crafting campaigns that both resonate locally and drive global revenue might seem like a daunting task. How do social marketers and successful marketers overcome these challenges, ensuring that their media strategies transcend borders while aligning with overarching business goals? Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Jack Richards, a renowned leader in global marketing integration, currently steering strategies at Onclusive. Jack has honed ability to seamlessly weave PESO initiatives across continents, transforming them into powerful revenue engines. His expertise offers invaluable insights into tailoring PESO models to fit varied cultural and digital environments, creating campaigns that are as impactful as they are strategically aligned. Hey, Jack, welcome to the show.
I'm going to have to pay you to clip that introduction up and put that everywhere. I love that. It's great to be here. Mike, thanks for that lovely intro.
Happy to come over in London and introduce you at every event. Just let me know when and where.
The check is in the post.
Right, right. So I wonder if you could start by just kind of sharing your approach to integrating these kinds of strategies, these PESO strategies across all these diverse regions that you're working in.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to understanding your audience, right? It's so easy to build a campaign out of the box, um, or based on an audience that you created 5, 10 years ago, or something far too generic. Um, I mean, newsflash: your 2019 market research is out of date. Your 2021 customer survey is now wrong. Your NPS is as out of date when you've done it as it was 24 hours ago. So for us, it's really about getting close to your audience and closing that gap between you and them. But also starting with objectives in mind. And these may vary by market or by campaign. For example, I know in my mind realistically which are the three markets that are growing to grow this business. That said, there is still huge importance and huge emphasis based on those emerging markets, on what they can do for awareness, volume of conversations, engagement, um, particular performance metrics within certain channels. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate to the middle and bottom of funnel, but by starting with those objectives in mind, we're really starting to integrate PESO in a far more sophisticated way. Um, and the final thing really is understanding ROI and what good looks like. So, what does a good CPC or CPL look like in Spain versus the US? For example, $1,000 might be great in the US, but it might be awful in Spain. It might need to be $100, for example, and not comparing apples with oranges. Um, and all of that comes down to then you look at that PESO model and you understand with that audience in mind, with the objectives in mind, with the idea of what good looks like in mind. Where do I weight peso? Where do I put more budget, more time, more resource, more emphasis? And that's something I'm really proud of the progress we've made at Onclusive in the last couple of years.
Terrific. Take a moment and just tell us a little bit more about Onclusive. What is it that you guys do for those who aren't familiar?
Sure. So Onclusive is we really like to see ourselves as a partner for PR marketing and just broader communications success. Um, really about proving and improving value. We all know that when budgets are cut, marketing or communications is often the first or one of the first functions to be looked at. So, how do you understand not only those reputational drivers, but also how to demonstrate and improve impact? So, we support PR marketing and comms practitioners across the whole workflow, or as I like to see it, work day, from when you receive a breaking news alert in the middle of the night through our social listening platform, Onclusive Social, with chatter online about something that might have happened relating to your brand, then responding by distributing a press release through our platform, monitoring the impact with one of our monitoring platforms, such as Critical Mention in the US, then running analysis and insights, so on and so forth. It's that full suite of sort of communications tools and services. And that's an industry I've worked in for a little while now. This is my third stint. So if I don't know it by now, I've got no hope, Mike, to be honest.
Well, it's great. We love you guys here at Agora Pulse. We've partnered on some summits and webinars in the past. We've got a great long-standing mutually beneficial relationship. And I'm wondering, as you talked through your approaches to marketing in the past, what are some of the challenges that you've encountered, particularly when trying to adapt different media strategies to different markets, and how did you overcome those?
Oh, I think everyone listening will resonate with the fact that sales are the best marketers, right? They've got all of the ideas. They know what works, what doesn't, what we should be doing. It- It's true. I can hear you laughing. It's true. And for me, throughout my career, that's been the both the biggest barrier, but also once you get it right, it's the biggest sort of component of success. Um, and that's why, and I guess I would say this working for a business in the measurement world, um, but that's why you just have to be rooted in data, whether that's ROI analysis, whether that's something more simple like output metrics. Um, we shouldn't just be doing things because it's what we did when we worked for a competitor 10 years ago, or it's because we see a competitor doing it at the moment. We should do it because we know it works and we know it will drive value. And I think that's been the biggest challenge is that education piece. Um, but sales, they like to be involved in the journey. They like to feel listened to, and they also understand the value of data. So putting that in front of them, involving them in the conversation has been, a huge element of our sort of success in taking steps forward in the last couple of years.
So when we're talking about data, how would you say the metrics differ between paid, earned, shared, owned channels in your campaigns, and which ones tend to indicate success in your mind?
Oh my goodness. I think regardless of the channel, um, we it would be a pretty boring podcast if I start listing a load of metrics. You can go and look those up yourselves. My advice would be to stop counting stuff. If I'm a shareholder or a private equity business or a CEO, a CFO, I don't want to hear sort of numbers on their own. If we start counting stuff, we end up in a cycle of just doing stuff. We reduce ourselves to a tactical function that gets told to, can you just PR this? Can you just make this go viral on social? Can we just do some email marketing around this? I think we all know it's not as simple as that, but also, that doesn't really generate any meaningful results. And that's what I would call outputs, Mike.
Yeah.
Things like the volume of press releases, social posts, as I mentioned. I think if you want to demonstrate value, as a minimum, you've got to move towards outtakes. What do people now think and feel as a result of the work that we're doing? Does that mean change in sentiment on social? Does that mean our interactions on social are changing? Our media coverage has changed from negative to positive, so on and so forth. If you're super smart, maybe even reviews changing from an average of 2 to 4 stars. So moving from outputs to outtakes, and then the really smart marketers listening will have moved to outcomes. What is the impact on my objective? And that's what we started the podcast with, right? Is this idea of starting with objectives in mind. Ideally, they should be business objectives, revenue objectives. How has what we have done impacted new business, retention, upsell, staff retention, staff satisfaction, whatever that objective might be? How have you impacted it? And where is marketing's value in the stuff that we're measuring as a business? If your organization has 2, 3, 4 objectives this year, all of your marketing activity should roll up into those 2, 3, 4 objectives, and you should have things that are measurable against that. So I know that sort of slightly dodged your question around PESO. I don't think it's as simple as that, Mike, but hopefully that's some help.
Absolutely. No, it's fascinating. I definitely agree and love that approach of, shifting from outputs to outcomes. I had never heard that intro uh region of outtakes before. Love that concept. One thing we have talked about on this show and in our agency show is the EOS framework. So folks, if you don't have an actual framework in your business already for planning, what are your objectives and how are you going to get there and how are you going to measure them? EOS is one that we use at Agorapulse. Definitely recommend you check that out. In fact, my episode with Matt Hines, we'll link to that in the show notes. That's probably a terrific one to learn about having those kinds of objectives that you can make sure that everything else that you're doing rolls up into them. One of the things you talked about a moment ago was, how there's differences in the different regions that you're marketing to. Something that's worth $1,000 in the U.S. Maybe that's too much. Maybe it should only be $100 in Spain. That kind of reflects the fact that every one of these regions kind of needs to have these local nuances, right? Whether it's in messaging or execution. How do you balance that against wanting to have some kind of global consistency across all your messages?
This is, as a field marketer, this is the sort of question that I relish. It would be it would be pointless having a field marketing function if you're just going to dictate a strategy out of New York, London, or Paris. It makes literally zero sense. There's a reason that we have built a field marketing function at Onclusive, and it's because we want to trust the experts we have in markets. They are experts in what they do, both in our industry, but also in their geography. Um, and I try as much as I can to give them as much, not only flexibility to distribute what we're doing and sort of disseminate the information we're sharing, but be involved in the process from the start. I think is super super important. So, for example, we're running a campaign in October. My team have got a call tomorrow to feedback on how that's relevant for their market, what their audience will think and feel as a result of that campaign. So I guess that's the first thing, and that sort of links back to that idea that I mentioned earlier about understanding your audience as well. Your audience isn't necessarily just, you know, Sally, the marketing manager, or David, the PR manager in New York, London, or Paris. It could be someone in, one of these other territories where what they want, need, etc., is different. Um, I often try and think about our campaigns through the lens of a sales methodology, whether that's Medic or my preference is Spiced, which actually looks at what's the situation that a lot of them find themselves in, what are the potential pain points, what are compelling events that get them to actually investigate new partners. Um, and those will obviously be different on depending on territory, and that's why it's so important to bring in local voices at the start of the process, not just the end. And that's a learning, to be honest, that we've been on. It didn't used to be that way. I did a lot of fighting internally to make sure that it was. I can be a loud and annoying voice when I want to be. Um, so that's that's been the main thing. The another sort of smaller point, which I think is overlooked, and this might be quite niche from a field marketing perspective, but is understanding the difference between translation and localization. And something that makes me sad is seeing actually larger businesses who are maybe gearing up for sale or trying to cut costs, or think their inbound machine is working perfectly because of global content or Google ads or whatever it might be. But they then move to just translating stuff, even if that's really high quality translators. That's different from having local content or local campaigns, local events that understand that audience and resonate with them, their pain points, so on and so forth, that bring them into the campaign. So I think, yeah, it's about understanding your audience and trusting your local marketers to do that and be brought into the process. And part of that is as simple as understanding the difference between translation and localization.
I could not agree more. As chief storyteller at Agorapulse, not only am I hosting these podcasts, but I'm also interviewing our customers.
I mean,
But I'm only fluent in English. I have really bad understanding of several other languages. So I'm not French, I'm not Spanish or German, but we have strong markets there. So we're relying on our local teams to interview those regional customers and bubble those up so that we have this combination of great English driven stories, also great French, German driven stories. Yes, we still translate them back and forth, but if a French prospect comes to our blog and they're looking at our French content, they're going to see actual French customers that look and sound just like them. Friends, we're talking with Jack Richards about the challenges and the opportunities that come with tackling marketing strategies across various regions. And I've got a few more questions for him, but before I get to those, let's make sure you've got a tool in place to help you monitor whether your strategies are actually working.
Actually can't say enough great things about the reporting with Agorapulse. I feel like that is my job security every month. My clients aren't that active on social media, which is why they have me manage their profiles for them. And when they get that report, it verifies that they're making a good investment.
The metrics downloads are so simple and easy to read, and it really helps me show where we are doing things right on social and where we need to improve.
So I think one of the main reasons why we decided to move to Agorapulse is because it's a more comprehensive, integrated tool for all of our marketing needs. So rather than what we have had to do historically with Sprout, which is use certain parts of that platform that work really well and then supplement it with other outside tools, by moving to Agorapulse, we were able to keep all of that into one technology platform, which is not only a time saver, but it also makes sure that our analytics and all of our reporting's on point because we're pulling all from the same source.
It's a really great platform for agencies. It makes it really easy to manage, but gives me really, really, really robust information that actually helps me develop better strategies for my clients and better plans of action.
So, Jack, I know that there's a lot that Onclusive does. I'm wondering if you could walk us through the types of digital tools and platforms that you rely on for this kind of strategy execution and measurement, how Onclusive fits in, or if there are other tools that you also would recommend.
yeah, I mean, I love that we've come to this after a video about your tools. I'm obsessed now with that video, and I'm going to be taking that forward, Mike. My goodness, tools. I think speaking openly, we're probably under reliant on tools, and that's something that's a real focus for us this year. How can we empower and equip our colleagues in the marketing function to do better work? Whenever I speak at conferences or speak to colleagues about, like, what are the three tools that I could not live without, I'm afraid that two of them are really boring, but it's true. The first is Canva. On that point of translation and localization, we love that it can magic translate in situ. It saves us time, it saves us money, and it also allows our team to get hands on without having to necessarily have additional training on things like Adobe, etc. I'm sorry, I know that's boring, but that's okay because we can transition to a second boring one, which is HubSpot has changed our lives. I don't mind telling you that when I joined this business, it's no secret we are born out of the wonderful world of private equity. That often means that businesses are brought together at pace, and not with the most sophisticated data infrastructure, tech stack, so on and so forth. So myself and the CMO spent a lot of time thinking about data and how we tell, how we get the data to tell the story we wanted to tell. Um, we weren't even that far. We didn't even have the data in the first place, and HubSpot has changed our lives in that regard. We used to have a colleague working here who would ask us to produce what they would call magic tables. There's nothing magic about them. It's an ROI table by channel, by market on a monthly basis. It's still very time consuming. Um, but to your point about understanding, local geographies and what works and what doesn't across PESO, that was revolutionary for us. Um, and genuinely, although this might sound like a plug, I'm not paid anything for saying this. We use Onclusive's tools, and I'm quite open about that. For press release distribution, we use PR Manager to help sort of write, distribute press releases, and then attribute coverage. We also build media lists in there, etc. We use our own monitoring tools. So in the UK, we use our Onclusive Monitor module. In the US, we use Critical Mention, who some of you may have heard of. We practice what we preach on the social front as well. So we do quite deep audience analysis. We want to understand who they are, where they hang out, what matters to them, what are the topics that they're talking about, the influencers driving their behavior. So we use Onclusive Social, formerly known as Digimind, to do that. We use our forward planning tool, Onclusive Forward Planner. There's nothing quite like it on the market. And what that really, the value of that is, there are so many different values, but what we use it for is sort of both media planning and newsjacking. One of our goals this year is to grow our share of voice. We are the third largest player globally in this space. We want to start acting like it. And we had an opportunity last week by using Forward Planner, which is essentially the most comprehensive diary of events in the UK. In the US, it's called AP Planner. We partner with the Associated Press there. It's such a comprehensive diary that allows us not only to plan what we're doing, but to then newsjack when opportunities come around. And we had an opportunity to do that last week that secured us tier 1 media coverage on the same day. So it's a mixture of practicing what we preach and using our own tools, using tools that I would say probably 90% of those of you listening are also using, and then now starting to explore others, particularly in ABM and more sort of sophisticated areas as well.
Love it. I love the tip about Canva because I'm a longtime Canva user personally, and at Agorapulse, I didn't know that it would translate the
It will
template
change your life,
images.
Mike.
That's fantastic. I love that. Now, I want to go back though to what we were talking about before the break because we were talking about translation versus regionalization. You're talking about how you've got field managers that you trust, and I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit more because I'm curious how you ensure that your campaigns remain culturally relevant across these vastly different regions. Is it just by very nature of having field managers that are ingrained in those areas, or is there anything else that you guys are doing?
That is a huge part of it. It's a huge, huge part of it. And I've been a huge proponent of ensuring we retain field marketers. It's very easy in any business, and I've been there before for this hasn't happened at Onclusive, luckily, but for a CFO or a CEO to look line by line at headcount and say, why have we got someone in Paris? Why can't we, onshore or offshore or whatever that might be? And there's no one better to understand what resonates culturally than having someone there who gets it and has the cultural context, the socio-political nuance, the economic understanding, etc. And that's an argument we have with AI, for example, all of the time. It's never going to quite get it. So that is important, but also it's how you facilitate that as well. So we run regular workshops, not just with the field marketers, but with our commercial colleagues. And most importantly, those running our customer success function, those who spend the time with our clients. We are not a business without our clients. And we spend a lot of time working with them to understand trends, topics, areas of concern, worry, etc. Um, and the other thing is our own research. So we're running a campaign in October that I've mentioned. The planning has already begun for that, and it will have sort of branching logic, stuff as simple as that, having branching logic based on your market, so that we can provide, we can serve you the most authentic, the most relevant content based on who you are and what matters to you. So it's not just as simple as, I have Francesco in Madrid, and I have Stephanie in the US, and Marianne in France, and Jared in APAC, so on and so forth. They have to be involved in the process, and they have to have the tools, the budget, the resource, and the power to impact what reaches our customers and our future customers. And that's something we've ingrained into what we do in the marketing function at Onclusive.
Love that approach. But you mentioned AI, so you brought it up. I didn't mention it.
Oh no.
So I'm wondering how you see that impacting, how this development of AI, this fourth industrial revolution impacting these kinds of strategies, or are there other future trends that you see kind of implementing or influencing the development of paid, earned, shared, and owned when it comes to globalization and worldwide markets?
Yeah, I've actually been at a conference today in London. That's why I'm a sweaty mess today. Um, where a huge part of that was on the topic of AI. And we also have an event this month hosted by Onclusive in London, and it's following us around the world. So we'll be doing it in San Francisco, we'll be doing it in Singapore on the topic of AI and the future of communications. So keep an eye out for that. Um, in terms of AI, I think we're now broadly agreed that AI isn't going to replace jobs, but those who embrace it will become more powerful, more efficient, and be freed up to do the work that we want to do. None of us got into marketing to sort of derive impact. We got into drive impact. Um, Nobody got into communications to, understand the value of what we do, but to actually deliver it. Um, and we can already see, certainly from the Onclusive side of things, that is where artificial intelligence and machine learning is making the biggest impact. So here at Onclusive, we have our own proprietary AI engine called AI Sense, that really helps you to sort of cut through the noise and make sense of it all, is how I would position it. And that's things like, I mentioned earlier, sort of news alerts. So you get a notification when, not when things are kicking off necessarily, but actually in a more of a predictive manner, so that you can anticipate and react ahead of time. Things like when we identify a peak in social conversations, will not only provide charting, but will summarize what those conversations mean, and what next steps might look like, and so on and so forth. So I think really what we'll see, particularly in 2025, is more of those tools that are sort of aiding, particularly marketing practitioners, to do their roles in a more efficient way. What I'm really keen to see, and I don't think anyone has quite unpacked this yet, is how we understand and articulate the positive impact of AI to our businesses, to our clients, to our stakeholders, in a way that doesn't just count hours or minutes or time saved, um, you know, but going back to that point of outputs, outtakes, and outcomes,
Yeah.
how has this directly impacted our objectives, and what's the benefit? That's something I'm hoping we'll start to see a bit more of this year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's definitely a challenge with almost every business I talk to. Few are currently tracking how much time it takes any individual employee to accomplish any individual task. So right off the bat, they're at a disadvantage when they bring in AI. And maybe it does save them time, but they can't articulate how much. And because of that, then they can't articulate, well, what am I doing instead? How has it helped my role? How has it helped me be more productive, more strategic? It's really hard for them to talk like that because they're not used to articulating those kinds of concepts. Now, the one thing you said that I'll push back on was this idea that AI isn't going to take jobs. And I say that because the World Economic Forum recently did a report that suggested that within the next 5 years, not 30 years, but the next 5 years, 92 million jobs will be displaced due to AI and AI technology. 170 million jobs will be created. So that's certainly a net gain of 78 million jobs. And yet, 92 million people are still going to have to upskill or reskill. And I just say that because I want all of you listening to be thinking about, how is AI going to impact my job? Am I using AI? If I'm not, I need to learn. That's something every one of you listening should be thinking to yourselves right now. I need to learn how to adopt and adapt to AI, because it is coming for jobs, whether we mean to for it or not. But Jack, this has been so insightful. I love this conversation. It's been eye-opening in a lot of ways. And I know folks are going to have questions for you. They're going to want to learn more about Onclusive. Where should they go to connect with you and learn more?
In all of the usual places. I am on Blue Sky, Twitter, LinkedIn. Luckily, I don't have a common name, so it won't be hard to find me. Um, um, and if you really have a pressing question, you can email me jack.richards@onclusive.com. I think the best thing you can do is ask me what we can give you for free. I'm in a privileged position where I can do that. We have things like daily news alerts that summarize the day's news, the headlines before they've even landed. We have daily planning emails that tell you about the biggest news events that will be happening that are planned in the diary this week. We have free access to social, free trials. And if you're really nice to me, I can make sure you get access. So do reach out.
Fantastic. Folks, I'll have all of Jack's contact information in the links below so that you can reach out and be nice to him and get free things. That's all the time we've got for today, friends. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, all of you, for listening. Don't forget to find the Social Pulse Podcast B2B Edition on Apple. Drop me a review. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you'd like to see in future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time. Thank you for joining another episode of Social Pulse Podcast B2B Edition, hosted by Mike Alton and powered by Agorapulse, the leading social media management solution. Learn more at agorapulse.com. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player and leave us a review. We value your feedback and look forward to bringing you more useful insights.